Hello and welcome to Looking at the Markets. Gold is such a bullish prospect for 2023 and beyond, in my humble opinion. It's amazing to me that gold is below the all-time high, below $2,000 per ounce. It should be much higher, and there are a number of ways to play this if you're as bullish on gold as I am, and to discuss the opportunities and one particular company that I'm really high conviction on. We have Mr. Kyle Floyd, CEO of Vox Royalty Corp. And if you want to learn more about this company, I want you to go to voxroyalty.com. Link is in the description below this video. Mr. Floyd, welcome to Looking at the Markets, sir.
Thanks, David. Pleasure to be with you.
Yeah, so what are some of the bullish catalysts for gold, and why is the royalty slash streaming business model that Vox Royalty uses so advantageous?
Well, look, gold and the metals as a basket, almost to the metal, are up very significantly in the start of 2023, and so that's very buoyant and very productive for a royalty company like Vox. One of the nuances to understand about Vox Royalty Corp is we are not a mining company, so we are a very capital-light business that owns third-party royalties, which means we are entitled to a percentage of the revenue from current production and future production from mines all around the world. So for your investors and your audience to understand, the great thing is we don't put money forward to mining companies. We don't operate mines, which means one of the most capital intensive industries in the world. We're not exposed to those cost structures. So we just take pure revenue percentages off the top of mines all around the world, with a huge focus on Australia, particularly Western Australia, which is one of the best mining markets and one of the best markets for gold mining in particular. So we have great exposure to a number of different commodities, gold obviously being a focal point for us in a lot of respects. And so we're really excited about the leverage that we offer to metal price increases for our investors, and also going alongside of that, really strong fundamentals as well, growing revenues. We pay a dividend, and we trade at a very significant discount to most of our closest comps in the market.
Yeah, and there's huge news here. Vox Royalty Corp, yes, it's been trading for a while on the TSXV Canadian exchange under the ticker symbol VOX. We knew this already, but now it's trading. You got an upgrade on the NASDAQ ticker symbol VOXR. What does this mean for Vox Royalty going forward?
Yeah, David, this was a huge milestone for a business. When I founded this company almost 10 years ago, it was really with the generalist investor in mind that wanted commodity exposure: gold, silver, base metals, industrials metals, battery metals. We wanted to be able to offer all of that exposure at great value in a capital light business, and we've achieved that. And part and parcel to that was also being listed on the NASDAQ, which has the deepest pool of capital markets and investors, and allowed us to be exposed to the investors that we were created to solve a problem for, which is, how do I get exposure to these commodities in a way that I understand it, with professionals and a management team and executive team that understands how to evaluate risk and opportunities in the commodity sector with the best asset class that there is in that sector, which is royalties. So we believe that we connected all the dots on that. And now, being on the NASDAQ, we actually get to serve the investors that we always set out to serve, which are generalist investors all over the world that are looking for interesting exposure to commodities. So that was really big for us. It also comes with more notoriety. So something that we were really excited to be able to finally achieve and offer ourselves up to an entirely new class and new pool of investors that we always sought to serve.
Yeah. And what's great about this, again, it's an upgrade. It's totally legit on the NASDAQ, so you know it's the real deal. And Vox Royalty, instead of just investing in one or two companies that mine for gold and other minerals, you can get instant geographic diversification, as I call it. I'm looking at the map on voxroyalty.com right now. I see potential revenue streams from North America, South America, Africa, Australia. It's just global diversification, and not just gold, but other minerals as well. And you guys are growing your royalty portfolio. I want to talk about first Quantum Minerals. What's happening with that?
Yeah, so last year we announced many exciting transactions. Going kind of backwards, we announced that we acquired a royalty over the CARDINIA gold project in Western Australia, and then we acquired a handful of royalties and royalty options from First Quantum, which is one of the world's largest mining companies with a focus on copper. So that was very exciting. And then we also had a handful of transactions that closed this year that we believe set us apart from many of our royalty company peers in terms of the true accretive acquisitional values that we brought these royalties in for our investors. So you noted our exposures. One of the things we're really pleased to offer our investors is over 80% of our exposure is into tier one mining jurisdictions and the best jurisdictions within those tier one jurisdictions. So, for example, 70% of our assets are in Australia, but most of those are in Western Australia, which was ranked the number one mining market based on the Fraser Institute's analysis, which does these rankings every year. And from a practical standpoint, I would say Western Australia is heads and tails above almost anywhere else. And then within Canada and the US, in Canada, we're in Ontario and Quebec with most of our exposure. And then in the US, it's Nevada. So we kind of cover off the world's best mining markets for our investors. That's where we have the most exposure to. And then something you noted, tremendous growth in producing asset count. We announced record revenues for 2022. This is all a byproduct of good royalty acquisitions, projects executing, in most cases beyond our expectations, and then a very buoyant metal price kind of across the board. And so we had a 160% increase in our revenues from 2021 to the end of 2022 on a preliminary basis. So for investors out there, we believe we're offering a really unique exposure to a growing business that has over, at this point, 7 producing assets, and that's expected to grow. So there's a lot of really positive developments within our business that we can talk about, David. So I'll kick it back to you.
Yeah, I read about that in a press release, and these press releases are all available. I'll tell you what, I'll put links in the description below this video to all these press releases. I read about Vox Royalty's record preliminary revenue receipts, $9.7 million for fiscal 2022. Like you said, that's over approximately 160% year-over-year revenue increase. Unbelievable results here. And there are a bunch of other stats we can go over. We could just keep going. But yeah, so I wanted to talk about first Quantum Minerals. I mean, Vox Royalty is getting exposure to those potential revenues up to 4 Canadian royalties for just a pittance. I mean, you got a steal on that one. In addition to that, the news just keeps on coming. Vox acquiring Australian gold royalty over Cardinia Gold Project. What are the specifics on that one?
Yeah, so we acquired a royalty over what's a development stage project right now. This was a royalty that was essentially forgotten about in essentially a Chinese conglomerate mining company based, with one of their big operations out of Australia. We noted that they had this royalty. One of the things that I think you've profiled in us before is that we have a proprietary database that we bought in 2019 that covers the most comprehensive list of third-party royalties that are out there for acquisition. It's a huge competitive advantage for our business. And within that database, we had found that this company held this forgotten royalty. So we approached this company that held the royalty. We're able to acquire it at great value. And we have high hopes that this project can be in production over the near term. But we acquired it at tremendous value for Vox and our shareholders. And so that's part of, if you will, the secret sauce of our business is that we have an ability to go find really interesting royalties over great mining projects at compelling value, really in a systematic and disciplined approach that hasn't been done in the industry maybe ever. And we're ultimately able to find valuations on royalties as if we were going back into the 80s and 90s. So we have a very unique capacity and capability in terms of finding value for investors. These recent acquisitions that you touched on are just further evidence of that and for further validation of our business and our ability to create value for investors.
And speaking of creating value for investors, some individual mining stocks don't pay a dividend at all. You guys, your company, you're committed to dividends. I mean, sure, you can own tangible gold, and that's great. It's important, and other minerals as well. But if you just trade the futures, if you just own the physical gold, you're not getting a dividend. So how committed is Vox Royalty to paying that dividend on a consistent basis?
Yeah, well, we always said we believe that our business will allow us to begin returning capital to shareholders. We started that process through stock buybacks in 2021 and 2022. And then as we have, emerged into 2023, we announced an inaugural dividend, and we're really excited about that dividend. That's just the furtherance of, our belief that capital does need to be returned to shareholders. It still allows us a meaningful amount of cash flow to devote to accretive acquisitions and continuing to buy royalties. And then also one of the things that we said before we announced the dividend is when we would put a dividend in place, it was something that we believe would be very sustainable and also capable of growing. So we believe that as the hallmarks of a growing business alongside a growing loyalty, but we'll continue to keep our heads down and executing the business, and believe that over the medium and long term, we're hoping to also offer a very meaningfully growing royalty portfolio alongside a growing dividend.
Yeah, and imagine being able to collect potential dividends and share price appreciation on this gold bull market and minerals bull market that I see happening for the remainder of 2023 and well beyond that. I mean, there was so much government money printing in 2020 in the wake of the thing that happened that I cannot mention on YouTube, unfortunately. But we all know the crisis that happened. Government money printing on a huge scale. There was bound to be inflation, and I think that there's going to be a delayed but powerful effect on the gold price. We're seeing silver make a move, but gold is going to be huge. And just to wrap it up, what can we look forward to with this, I believe, bull market that's we're just getting started on? What can we look forward to in the near future for Vox Royalty?
Well, David, I think you really hit the nail on the head. This portends to be a very, very positive bull market for the metals. That's the expectation held by many. I think Goldman Sachs, their key analyst covering this sector, expected something like a 42% increase broadly on commodities, metal commodities. So, we're really excited about what this market means and the tailwinds that it provides to our business. But also, I think what's important for your viewers to understand is, we have 4 producing gold assets right now, another 2 that we're expecting to come online based on operator guidance this year. So for your investors out there, it's important to be able to capitalize on higher metal prices and have a company that's actually delivering value tangibly in a market like this. And so Vox, with a growing produced asset count, growing revenues, a dividend, we believe that we present investors a really unique opportunity to take advantage of a lot of leverage to assets that aren't in production yet, but are growing, but also then the producing assets that will benefit from higher metal prices across the board. So we believe we're very unique in our ability to offer that exposure to investors.
Yeah, over 50 royalties around the world, really. Again, I want people to go to voxroyalty.com. Link in the description below this video. Look at the map. And you'll see all the pins on that map where Vox Royalty is potentially generating revenues. And so you get that instant diversification both geographically and in terms of minerals, because it's not just gold royalties, it's a number of different minerals. And the company's been around for years, established in 2014, and so this is not just some startup. This is not an up-and-comer. This is an established company, and you know it's established because it's on the NASDAQ now, VOXR on the NASDAQ, and still VOX on the TSXV. If you have access to the TSXV exchange, you could do that with your broker as well. Ask your broker if they have it. They probably will, because what broker doesn't offer NASDAQ-listed stocks nowadays? I mean, come on. So I've been speaking with Mr. Kyle Floyd, CEO of Vox Royalty, voxroyalty.com. I'll put links in the description of this video to the press releases, most importantly to voxroyalty.com, so you could learn, because always learn before you earn. That's what I like to say. Mr. Floyd, when, in my opinion, if and when gold is much more expensive than it is now, we're going to have to talk to you again about the updates and about how Vox Royalty is doing and responding to these developments. So I want to thank you for coming and looking at the markets today, sir.
Been my pleasure, David. We're really excited about the exposure that we offer to investors. We've got a very good fundamental business growing and some really meaningful tailwinds behind us in terms of what's happening with the metals today. So thank you for having us on. It's always a privilege.